All right, welcome to our work session for June 3rd. We are going to start as usual with our board and commission interviews. We have two this evening, one for the Planning Commission, one for the Board of Adjustment. We will start with Jennifer Gates for the Board of Adjustment. Jennifer, if you'll just join us right up here, you can just stand here and let us know why you have applied and what you might bring to the board.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Gates. I've been a resident here at Webster for 8 years now. We have a 5th grader at Edgar Road and then an 8th grader at Kingston. And I'm a registered architect for 20 years of experience with residential, mixed use, commercial, pretty much the whole gamut.
Have you done any lawyers' offices?
The lawyers. You can decipher how you want to do it. And municipalities as well. I've also done facility management for Scott Air Force Base for the Air Mobility Command. So it's kind of a lot of different things. I started my own design firm in 2013. And then my husband joined 1.5 years ago. He's also a registered architect.
What are you guys talking about?
Yes. So you're gonna scare her away from service. I'm not quite.
I currently volunteer for kids PTOs and also on the finance team at our church. And I wanted to volunteer with community using my professional skills. So I'm here for the Board of Adjustments. There's a vacancy and I thought I can help out.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah. Does anyone have questions?
I don't. Thank you for sharing with us.
No, not that one.
I've been told I can't ask any questions.
And we will promise there will be no hazing from the legal community. Right, I think that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Actually, in the sake of full disclosure, I have utilized Jennifer and her firm in both my fire protection districts, my ambulance districts, and in my personal office space.
You won't hold that against her. All right, next, thank you again, Jennifer, very much. Next for the Plan Commission, we have Andrew Moses. Neil, I'm gonna ask you. Come on up.
Seems like a nice fellow.
Please go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Moses. I live in South Webster. Married to my wife, Olivia. My son is going to be a 2nd grader at Edgar Road. My daughter is 3, and we have one daughter on the way, actually, with me next month. So sitting outnumbered.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for something nice and easy to do with my free time.
Yeah.
Plan Commission, that's it.
I've worked in commercial real estate for the last 10 years. I'm really passionate about real estate growth and development and thoughtful and careful planning. And I just love Webster Groves. I've lived here for 5 years. Not an original Webster Groves person per se, but I love this city so much. And I tell my wife that we're never leaving. I was meant to be a statesman, even though I'm not.
You are now.
That's right. That's right. I go to the basketball game. So anyways, I'm really passionate about Webster. I believe in thoughtful planning and growth for our city. It's such a special place. And when I think about having a chance to serve in a way to have an impact on the places that we have in the city, I want to be thoughtful about that and careful about that and smart about that. So I've got experience in that world, dealing with cities from a commercial real estate perspective, and I'd love to be of service to this great city. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Questions?
No, it's a great question.
You have a
I
good
appreciate your
Set of skills
Yeah.
that aren't necessarily there right now. So
Yeah, and I think I saw Maddie was one of your references. No, one of your references. No,
I do know her.
Maddie, maybe I'm getting confused. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hey, do you realize we're working on a comprehensive plan?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, good,
And I
because
know,
we'll have lots of work for you all the next year or two.
I think my good friend Michael Dankoff met with you
Yes.
recently. He's
Yes.
one of the best.
Okay.
Talking about his
Yep, that's right.
project over there. And
Yeah.
I'm super excited about that. But
All right, well, thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
As I said before, you're welcome to stay. It's okay if you don't. And you will hear from Katie Nakazano, our city clerk, in the next few days. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have Julia Lenig has resigned from the Business Development Commission. As you may or may not heard, she's selling her business, and unfortunately that means she's not eligible. And then that's why I was thinking of Maddie. Maddie Heikela had a change in life circumstances, she said, and is a job, I guess, and is resigning as well. So yeah, even though we're filling one, we may have another one. Is that with Maddie's, or does this fill Maddie's job? Oh, I was, oh, good.
That's great. Perfect timing.
Thank you. All right. You know what? Let's just do this now since we're talking about this. Are we okay with both of our interviewees? Jennifer Gates for Board of Adjustment, Andrew Moses for Plan Commission?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well then we will appoint them during the regular meeting. All right. Does anyone have anything to review on the regular agenda? We are going to add under new business a brief update about the opening week of the Aquatic Center. And I know we're going to hear from Director Boyd about that. And I think also Assistant Chief Weimer. So I'm saying that out loud. So when I try and cruise right by it in the regular meeting, you all will stop me from doing that. Right. How about updates? Emily, would you like to begin?
Yep, last night we had Green Space and Plan Commission. Green Space was good, did a little bit of a debrief of maybe I should back up. Last week we had a meeting with Green Space and Sustainability and some of us on council and Dr. Hugh, others, to talk about kind of, things that the commissions have in common with sustainability and green space and some different ideas there. So there was a lot of debrief about that meeting at last night's meeting. As part of that, I know we're just kind of beginning that discussion, but it was good to get some ideas out there. And just trying to kind of get get aligned with what we approved for the budget and what we put in their letter coming forward. So I think they're just kind of looking for that concrete direction that we've been talking about coming. So I think that the letter will be welcome when we get that to them. I think that's probably it for Green Space. For Plan Commission, we had the presentation from Lakota Group on the near final draft. I don't know. Final draft of the comprehensive plan. It looked really good. We had great engagement from Plan Commission. Lots of comments were made. I think overall it's a really good plan. I think there's some questions about like where plan fits in and the implementation and that whole thing, and kind of get some clarity around commission's role there, which we can talk about. But that was good. And
do you think they're on schedule to vote for a recommendation at their next meeting?
I think they are. I think they were a little caught off guard at the previous meeting that it was time for their kind of final thoughts and comments. I think that they thought that they would be more involved earlier in the process. So I think they're happy with it, and I think that we're on track to pass it. But process wise, there was just like a little bumpiness there that maybe we can talk about like that later. I don't know. But in general, I think it was well received, and I don't think the concerns were about the plan itself, more about like the process and the commission's role and timing and all of that. But overall, I thought it went well. And then so that's on track to they're gonna get a markup back from Lakota that shows what comments were addressed and which weren't. And then I think they have a kind of a chance to like respond to that, but not like a formal review process. And then there'll be the final that they'll vote on in July, and then they'll come to council in August. So schedule wise, we are on.
Yes, thanks. I was on a panel at UMSL for environmental policy conference, which was an awesome treat, and I got to brag on Webster and what we do. I attended the municipal league dinner with quite a few of you, and that was lots of fun. I did also want to mention that it's not a humble brag, but like to volunteer with the tornado relief this is the last week. They really need people. They really need donations. And I don't know what's gonna happen this week. I was hoping to plug in tomorrow or Thursday, but it's gonna be raining, so I'm not sure what's gonna be going on with that. But I think also just keeping our eye on ongoing support, both as individuals, and I don't know what Webster can do, but there's gonna be a lot. And then I was gonna mention the sister commission meeting as well, green space and sustainability, and the really great conversation had there, thoughtful. And I'm just grateful that we were pulled, you know, that we were given the platform to talk that through. So thanks to and Dr. Peoples.
I also attended the meeting with the chairs and vice chairs of the Green Space and Sustainability Commission meetings. It was essentially just to talk about kind of like the division of projects and ways to move forward that are a little more efficient. So I thought it was a good conversation, and looking forward to hearing how the two chairs and everyone kind of starts working together a little bit more. I also just attended the pool opening events. They were great. I thought so impressive, and can't wait to see the numbers, because it looked like when I drove by, the numbers are through the roof. It was just jam packed. So, and that's it. That's all I have.
The only thing I was gonna add is I gotta go to Dave Buck's community dog walk. And that was absolutely wonderful. My dog's gotta meet some new dogs. So that was good.
I have no updates by the commissions, but I do want to give a shout out to Porter's Chicken. I think it's Friday before last. They donated 300 pieces of chicken that we took up to the West Florissant YMCA. So we were glad to do that for them.
That's some good chicken too. I think you all have shared all of the updates. All right.
I have no updates, but
Okay, I just have a couple. I did a webinar with the National League of Cities today, updating on local government impacts of the reconciliation process in Washington. As most of you know, the bills moved from the House to the Senate with a target for passing in the Senate before July 4th. Who knows whether that's going to happen, but there are two letters that I would like us, or would like your thoughts about whether I should sign on. One is the bill zeroes out all the funding for community development block grants and the home program, which is a pretty important housing program. And so they do have a letter that I could sign on behalf of the city to encourage the restoration of those funds in the Senate. The second letter is right now, the bill does preserve the tax exemption for municipal bonds. Apparently, there's some interest in the Senate about zeroing that out. So the other letter would encourage keeping that as that exemption intact. Does anybody have any problem with us signing on both of those?
Yes.
Okay. Then I will do that. And just a friendly reminder, those of you who are available, we are scheduled to serve beer and wine at the Arts Fair on Sunday afternoon, beginning at 2:30. Feel free to stop by Friday at 5 o'clock in the Arts Fair storefronts to pick up your t-shirts and join the volunteers reception.
Thanks for organizing that.
Sure. All right, we will go to our topics then, and that is Mr. Gregory Donovan, who's going to talk about our fund balance.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Actually, not our fund balance per se, but our policy.
We'll see.
Weighted fund balance. policy.
Yeah, I mean, this, what has it been this 18 months at least in the.
I haven't.
It's here for you. Delivered.
Oh, thank you. To direct my comments this way when we look at the top. So this is going to be fairly direct, I would say, in terms of our conversation. So why does a fund balance matter? And it's fund balance is there to provide stability in economic downturns or emergencies. And it's a financial cushion and it smooths out timing issues. So as you all know, or may not, maybe the public doesn't know, we get property taxes, for example, in lump sums in late November, most of them in December, some in January. This year they were delayed, as we're aware. We didn't get some until February. And then St. Louis County, if people challenge or object to them, to protest is the proper term, and then we may not get them again until May. Property tax is 11% of our roughly of our income. So the idea about having a fund balance is to smooth out those cash flow issues as we go throughout the course of the year. Also helps address any unexpected expenses. We are blessed to not have a lot of those. However, in 22, 23, when we had the flood, those were unexpected expenses. So you have that cushion. And another reason that we have it is for good credit ratings. We're AA1 with Moody's, which is basically as high as we can get. And it means that we're managing our money well. Fund balance versus cash reserves. These are often confused. They are not the same thing. So a fund balance includes everything: receivables, liabilities, non-liquid assets. So to get to our actual fund balance, I'm not preempting one of my slides, you take all of our assets and you subtract all of our liabilities, and the difference is the fund balance. That may not necessarily be what we have in the bank. We could have a lot more than our fund balance in the bank. We could have theoretically less if it's tied up, if things are tied up. So it's not, they're not the exact same thing. However, in Webster Groves, ours actually track pretty close to the same. And if you want to have that accounting conversation, we can have that another day. That's just more how we account for things in Webster Groves as it relates to fund balance. Some of your fund balance can be restricted or non-spendable. So obviously we might have something that's dedicated. So you might have fund balance that's tied up in a commitment to a particular project, say like the pool, for example. A capital project is most often what you've committed to, and that may tie up some of your money. Cash reserves, on the other hand, are cash. You can spend them all, theoretically. Obviously, we're not advocating doing that. But that's the basic difference between the two. The GFOA. So if those of you don't know what the GFOA is a Government Finance Officers Association. They are pretty much the gold standard, or everybody looks to in government from a financial perspective for their recommendations and good policy and things like that. The recommendation is that you keep at least 2 months of your expenses, your planned expenditures, really, and on hand for the purposes of fund balance. However, they suggest that you look at your local risks, revenue volatility. I was reading this white paper on it, and there are some municipalities in California, they keep extra fund balance in case there's an earthquake. You never need it, but that's what they keep it for. We're, again, lucky to have relative stability from a risk standpoint as it relates to, in that example, for natural disasters and things like that. They want you to have a written policy, which we do, and to address both how we use it and how we replenish it if we were to dip below our reserve amount. And it's focused on the general funds. And the reason for that is because all the other funds are already restricted. So our capital improvement fund can only be spent on capital projects. It's restricted. So you don't really need a fund balance policy as it relates to that. Same with stormwater or the parks. Those are already designated by law for the purpose of those taxes to be spent on those things. So our general fund balance policy, because ours is already tailored to focusing solely on our general fund. Our current target is 50%. So that means we have to have 50% of our planned expenditures as a fund balance. We have established already conditions for use. So it is to use the funds for capital expenditures, long-term obligations, or debt service needs. Now, I'm put a caveat to that. We also allow for the purpose of our fund balance is again to remember that we want to even out those cash flows. So if there are issues, if there are things where we have unintended an economic downturn, things like that to plan, emergency planning, it can be used for that purpose. What I'm talking about here in the conditions for use is if the council were to say, no, we got this fund balance, we don't anticipating needing it this year, but we want to spend some. We want to spend it down. These are the conditions that we've set for use to spend down our fund balance. And our replenishment plan is really simple. If we dip below 50% next year, we have to put money back in. So it has a budget triggering mechanism, if you will, in terms of policy. GFOA does not set a maximum, so they just simply suggest. Well, they don't make policy for anybody, but their suggestion is a floor. They don't have a suggested ceiling. However, these are some of the caveats that they talk about. This excess balances should be explained. Government money that is taxpayer money belongs to the residents of the city of Webster Groves. It is not designed for us to build a money bin and sit on the cash, right? Or the fund reserves, right? We are supposed to deploy that at the service to the people of the city. If we do end up having surplus, look at one-time projects, look at future needs. And again, avoid the unplanned accumulation. So because if we accumulate it without a purpose, right? If we don't have an anticipated purpose and we just continue to keep the money over and over and over again, that can suggest that we're not, again, deploying the funds as we should to the service of the people of the city. And it's not good for ongoing expenses. So you are all aware of this, I am sure. You don't accumulate fund balance for the purpose of covering your ongoing expenses as you look at the future, right? So it is not intended to supplant or cover ongoing things like salaries, program expansions, or structural deficits. You can use it in a short-term capacity for that, right? In the near term, use it to cover those things, again, to even that out. But as we look to the future and we do planning, it's relevant to the conversations that we're having around the budget. If we don't see those things, the revenue and expenditures narrowing, where the revenues are going to cover all of our expenditures, then we have to start to take a hard look at the budget, right? And what we are actually spending and where we can reduce that. The fund balance, sitting on a reserve fund balance, is not intended to cover ongoing expenses on a year after year basis. So my recommendation to you, which is included in the agenda for the council meeting tonight, and I'll tell you, I'm going to go why into this here in a minute, is that we as a city been very responsible in managing our money. We have a significant fund balance. And my recommendation is that we can take it down from 50%, which is 6 months, to 35%, which is about 4 months. Okay. Here's the chart. You can see how that I will get up here to point things out. So the bottom line is the 2-month recommendation of the GFOA. The next line above that is my suggested side. My suggestion is to move it to 35%. This would be that line. This is where our current line is, 50%. So this is what we're required to keep. The green is our fund balance. And this is our budget. So budget for expenditures, obviously. So as you can see, we've never even dipped. So we got close in 2022 to even getting to the 50%, triggering that, hey, we need to look at this, start spending fund, or as you're going about the fund balance. We've never touched it. And now we have this gap. So it may be counterintuitive to you to say, well, Gregory, why should we move it down to 35%? But it gives you greater flexibility. And that's what the recommendation essentially is. I'm not suggesting changing the purpose, the conditions of use, or anything like that. I'm simply saying, giving you the option to give you greater flexibility. Think about stormwater improvements. Think about other capital projects that we might have to come up where it may make sense that the general fund can support some of that from a capital perspective. Currently, we do not budget any capital improvement projects in the general fund. 0. So if you decide, well, we need to have some more leverage, we need to be able to address that stormwater thing sooner than later, whatever the particular project is, it would give you greater flexibility for things like that. This gap is here and here is roughly 8 million, give or take, about what our requirement is. So between the two, so that's your room right now in terms of fund balance. Does that mean you can, again, going back to my earlier slide, does that mean you can go and spend $8 million? The answer is no. Some of that's restricted. Some of that's already committed to different things that we've already agreed to purchase or whatever. But that is the difference in your currently between the fund balance and our needs.
The 50%.
That's the 50%, right? Not the 35%. So the key takeaways, again, fund balance, financial cushion, it's not cash on hand. Minimum of 2 months. There's no max, but again, should be explained and purposeful. And avoid, particularly in the long term, using the fund balance for incurring costs year over year over year over year. So that is my thoughts on the fund balance and my recommendation. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
On the graph,
Yes.
the spike over the last couple of years,
Mhm.
can you talk about where that's coming from
Sure.
on the green line?
So we can see that budget hasn't changed significantly on the expenditure side. It's been a bit of a flat line over the last 2 or 3 years. So this primarily has to do with us receiving the ARPA funds.
Okay.
That's a big part of that. And last year, we had such a big surplus between our revenue versus our actual expenditures. Those two things put together, one from an accounting perspective, one from an actual cash flow perspective, created this gap.
And this is just general fund, so this doesn't have any Prop W funds that are adjusted.
Yeah, nothing in the other funds. This is strictly with the general.
And this goes through the last year that's closed, 24.
It's through 24.
Do we know where we expect it to be at the end of 25?
25, it should increase again. We haven't taken on any new major liabilities. So, and I'm figuring $800,000 to $900,000 surplus. That may even be a bit higher. It depends on or it could be lower. And it really depends on expenses and income. I do not see us making our sales tax income targets this year. I will know more next week on that.
Kind of similar to 2024.
But similar to 2024, we've also again experienced vacancy savings. There were a number of contingencies inside of the budget. And I think this is important for the public to understand that the budget being a plan, there are contingencies built in. So even as we look to next year, and I'll talk about this some more later, but there's money built into there that's in case we need it, may not have to spend it. So that could widen that, the surplus, increase the surplus, and then the sales taxes may decrease it a little bit on the budget side. But I expect this to continue to widen if we don't do anything. So if you decide, not recommending that you spend it right now, but it's I expect it to widen going at the end of 2025 when we finally get to the audit. So.
But you said some of that's already committed, right? Because like, for example, when we looked at the ARPA funds, we really transferred it so that because we had a time frame during which we had to show it someplace.
Sure,
or use it.
we've already, from an accounting standpoint, we've already obligated and spent all of it. So like we've closed that out. I've closed it out with the federal government, so we're almost done with the audit for that. So
when we talk about it being contributing to that spike,
yes,
that's not money we can actually count because it's already flagged for something. Is that what you?
yes, no, but I would not say that that's committed. We don't have a lot of, at this point, committed funds. We don't have, all of our ARPA funds were obligated and considered spent.
Mhm.
So we don't have any more ARPA funds that are committed. So this is why the majority of this is spendable. I will give you an example of a commitment would be that last council meeting, we approved the resolution to have Dr. Peoples enter into a contract on behalf of the city to go host it for one of our software systems for $130,000. That's committed.
Mhm.
So it'd be examples of things like that. We don't carry a large committed balance in this city. We have not done that. So we've been pretty much a cash in, cash out city. And that's why our fund balance and our cash reserves track so closely together. We don't go into a lot of we don't go into a lot of debt. We don't accumulate a lot of liabilities. So rarely.
So Gregory, if I'm a member of the public thinking about this, I mean, and I don't know the background that you've given us, it would seem to me that moving from 50 to 35% would be quote unquote riskier. Do you agree with that assessment? How would you explain to someone based on our past behavior and based on the conditions that really this isn't increasing our risk?
It's not increasing our risk, and I would look at it from this point. While we have big chunks of income, particularly at the end of the year, generally speaking, the largest contributor to our general fund income is sales tax. And we get that every month. Like clockwork. On the 7th, the state makes its deposit. On the 10th, the county makes its deposit into our bank account. They've never missed. It's always there. So we get roughly, call it $800,000 of those 2 days every single month at the same time of the month. So we have our biggest source of income is also a very regular and steady source of income. Get a big jump at the ends of the year, calendar year, and then during the summertime, we get our recreation fees and that sort of thing and all that comes in. And because we also have very set expenses. Right? We have very regular, for the most part, we have very regular cash flowing expenses.
When we pay people, which we do,
We
that's
pay-
most of our money.
we
Yeah,
pay more
everyone
than
has to
70
pay.
yes, so it's so much of our money goes to personnel services. It goes out every 2 weeks. So we know our cash flow. So I don't consider a 4-month reserve risky at all, because what that means is that a 4-month reserve, if you think about it this way, is that if all of our income stopped, all of it went to zero, all of a sudden, we have 4 months, right, for that to pick up again before we're out of money, in quotes, if that makes sense. So, and for a government as well run as you all run this this city, and as steady as that our income is and the people that come and visit, this isn't an issue. I would also say, here's 2020, here's 2021. We didn't even get close during COVID when people couldn't come out and go to the restaurants and spend their money. So we didn't come close.
And even though we didn't come close, we still ran the city.
And we still ran the city. All of the services continued. So
And the GFOA recommendation is a 2-month
that's
surplus.
2 months. So we would still be twice their recommendation.
Yeah, okay.
And the 50% is 6.
50% is 6 months, which is our current policy. I don't have the notes about why it was set that and back in 2011 when the original policy was adopted, so 50%. I'm sure that there may be residents, and those of you in here talk to your financial advisor, it's like, you should have 6 months reserve. But that's a 6-month reserve, that's in case all of your income stops, right? All of a sudden you're out of a job or something. Right.
In 2011, that would be.
I thought we sold,
Somebody bought the water.
yeah, well, so the bulk of this comes from the sale of water.
Water. Yeah.
Whether that was at the same time they set the policy or not, I don't remember the date.
Maybe
Yeah.
coincidence.
So
Question, so, going down to 35% would impact our rating of Moody?
fund balance, I'd have to go back and look, Emerson, council member to be sure, but fund balance is it's only a portion of what's considered. The biggest thing actually that affects our maximum credit rating as far as Moody's is concerned is the state of Missouri's Hancock Amendment.
Okay.
Because we get treated all the same as all the other municipalities because they automatically knock us down because of the Hancock.
So that's why we can't ever get the very.
We will never get the highest possible rating because of the Hancock Amendment.
And always.
It's true for all of Missouri, and their logic is, well, if you're in trouble, you can't guarantee that you can raise your income.
Now, if we ever go below the 35%, and we have to bring that back up to 35%, that is a budget impact.
It's a budget impact, so that means you have to, at that point, you're reducing expenses.
Okay. And at what point would you recommend that we set triggers? We can see there in 2022 where the almost dipped into the 50%, I guess. At what point would you say, hey, council, you're getting ready or getting close, or?
Actually, you could use exactly that. You could use the 50% as the trigger to say, hey, we're dipping below. And I was talking to somebody about it. It may have been an email I sent that if this is heading in that direction, and I haven't brought it to your attention long before, or Dr. People's attention long before we get there, then you know where you should send me. So that plain and simple. Means I'm not doing my job.
Okay, but anything that would do over 35%, will go into whatever.
It just continues to go into the reserve, and again, the higher this goes, it will go higher this year. Unless for some reason something happens between now and June 30th. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I expect this to continue to trend upward. Even with the budget that I presented, it'll come back down, but more or less level with what it is right now.
Mhm.
I don't know what's gonna happen in 2027. And then, you still, at some point, in my opinion, as your director of finance and as a public servant, at some point, you have to address why you're keeping so much cash on hand to the people of the city.
So at that point, the council make a decision to bring it back down to 35, just like we had to make a decision to bring it back up to 35.
Correct. So you can do whatever you like. And again, general funds. This does not apply to capital improvement, grants, stormwater, or anything like that. None of that's being taken into consideration. This is strictly the general.
And if we did go down to 35%, how would that gap be calculated? In a separate fund or separate general ledger account?
I'm not understanding your question.
So right now we're at 50%. So if we want to bring it down to 35%, that chunk of money between 50 and 35, is that maintained in that same?
I see what you're saying. This is just a policy. This is the number that's maintained. So if we look at our fund balance account, this is what it'll say. It'll say it's $17.9 million in general fund balance. That's what it would say. This 50% is not accounted for in the sense that it's not written down in the book.
Okay.
It's simply policy.
So if we were to change the policy, this graph stays exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Nothing changes.
But then there's another decision, which is what do we want to do? What's our plan for the difference between the green line and the black, or the green line and the red, whichever one we decide to go with?
Correct.
Yeah, and so Dr. Peoples and I talked a little bit about that today. And one of the things that I'd like us to think about is to give them a period of time, and I mean several months, maybe up to 6 months, to make some sort of plan and proposal to us, both what kinds of things that are coming up in the next few years that might need to have some of this money address that, and then what's a time frame. Because the degree to which we have the capacity to do some of the projects that might be in front of us is not the same as, maybe the timeline for having the money available. They're competing demands, right? From stormwater to Firehouse One to whatever. And I think it's only fair after the budget season to give them a little bit of time to breathe and work on what that might look like.
I greatly appreciate that.
The most important thing for me is that those funds need to be invested back into the city.
Right.
Some way, somehow.
And right now, they're earning us interest.
And what's more
So
important, the interest rate or bringing out benefits for the
it
community.
is bringing out benefits for the community. That's the plain and simple. That's the answer to that question. So I just wanted to be clear that they're not sitting around. They're not in a mattress.
They're working.
They are working for us, but we have other things that I'm sure that you can come up with.
And I would say over the past years, when I say past years, I mean going back to 16, 15. The only time we did the fund balance is all of a sudden when the elevator broke down, we had to spend $90,000 to fix it. Or there was a deficit in the budget, then we transfer money over to balance it, per se. So
And even then, we have look
And
at
we used
this.
a little bit for Firehouse
No,
too.
we used it, but we didn't get all the way down.
right, but I'm just saying,
So-
that's the purpose wasn't how we used it should have been in a different light.
So we have right now in the consent agenda policy draft for adoption, which is what Gregory has laid out for us. I guess before we get to that, we can debate it if you want to. in the regular session. I think probably we should pull it out of consent so we have a vote on the policy itself. But I guess since we're, on time, does anybody have a problem with the 35? Do we need to? And if you do, the way to address it would be, we'll pull that out and you'll need to amend the policy. I just wanted to make clear what that would look like.
I think 35 is the middle of the road to start with, so I'm okay with it.
And especially since, like Gregory said, we could still use the 50 as a benchmark to say, hey, we need to start looking at this with. I don't have a problem with
I
that.
mean, it just seems wise to put the money to good use
Yeah.
instead of
It's sitting on.
keeping it for,
Rainy day.
yeah, well, and
Well, of course.
without a plan. It's like we're kind of keeping it without a plan.
Yeah.
So let's have a plan and really keep, get a good use out of it for everyone here, the residents.
Well, I know you, Pam and David and I, we started this conversation pre-pandemic, even before you
Yeah.
came on council.
Right.
And pandemic put it all on hold, and we can see what arguably the worst scenario for local government has been. So, okay. Gregory, thank you very much.
Yes, you're very
for
welcome.
this, presentation. Of course, wait, we're not finished yet.
Gregory, I just had, so. Assuming we go down to 35%, the game plan is for staff to come up with an itemized list of how we would spend any additional fund balance. Is that the idea here? So like, in other words, there would be approval from council still before we.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yeah, it's not, you have to approve any expense over 25,000 anyway, so we wouldn't come to you and say if we would always have to come to you for that spending, and I think that assembling a plan in your vision, on the conversation with Dr. Mayor and certainly you, that, look at, okay, what is this? Because it's not a spend it down in a year, right? It's over time. How to best deploy this for the needs as stipulated by policy.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Councilman Franklin, just a couple of the priorities right now, and plan hasn't been written, just in conversations. But as council adopts the comprehensive plan, for example, how do we actualize it? Even if it's just simply making all of the code changes, and I say simply, there will be nothing simple about it. We have, we hire additional people to help for that. We get a contracting service to help. Do we engage Lakota group further? So it'll be those types of recommendations.
I'd like to buy the big lots.
Oh,
Development up there.
I'll put it on the list.
I'd also like to annex Marlboro.
You're gonna go.
Yeah. I'm not on that one, David.
Go joining Webster Grove.
Thank you.
think that might
Canada or
be
Greenland.
Yeah.
That's like,
It's still good to be able to say, let's plan these projects to put back into the community with this money. I know there are gonna be ones that, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? But we still have to be careful on how we spend it. And when.
Absolutely, yeah, and you put a plan together, and again, it's like the budget, you put a plan together, then you may have to pull back at some point, so, well, it overreached, right, or something, or we hit a bump in the road and like, well, we're gonna have to put that plan on hold, just like we do with all of the other funds, right? So.
I think please go ahead.
Just gonna say, in light of all of the budget discussions, we're doing really well in the city. We've all seen some of the emails, and I'm sure you've had conversations with your neighbors, residents, and we did propose a budget this year that is upside down, and it is a one-time year. It is this budget year, which Mr. Donovan has explained greatly. But even with that, the city is doing incredibly well. And so I think it's hard for folks to understand, and I get that. It's hard to understand how can you have a shortage in one hand, yet you have a surplus in another, but we do. And so I think these conversations are incredibly meaningful. So please continue to talk with your neighbors and
And
friends.
this is the first year we've had police department full staff and the fire department full staff.
There's just a lot of factors that go into it.
And I think also our revenue projection is really conservative, right?
It was.
I mean, so this is the budget,
Yeah.
but our actuals might hopefully bear out to be different on the revenue side.
I agree, it's different analogies, but it's your checking account versus your retirement funds and your personal life, you still have investments. This is what you have to work with.
But I was just gonna say, like, I think it's important to emphasize though, that like we're looking at structural issues here.
Right.
So that's why it's important
Yeah.
to look at the streams and everything
Right.
as we go forward. So even though we're in good financial position, if we don't do anything, the structural issues will continue to compound and create even greater problems.
Gotcha. Plan for the future.
Well, and that was gonna be my point. Our job now is when we talk to people to really make it clear the difference between the structural problem we have
Yes.
and what good stewardship has done over time to give us some opportunities for
Right.
capital kinds of projects.
And for years, we had structured deficits that we did year after year after year after year. And we just transferred from the reserve to the funds that we were in balance. And that's not how we do it.
That's not sustainable long term at all, so. Those are conversations that need to be had.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. All right, we will, I don't know that we have a window that's big enough for that.
Depends on you all.
No.
Okay.
So we will take a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene in the chambers for our regular meeting. Oh, all right, we are recording, I see, all right. So welcome to the regular meeting of the Webster Grove City Council for June 3rd. We welcome questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Please comment when recognized by myself. If you are in the room, we ask you if you're going to make a comment either for the budget public hearing or just in our general community time to fill out a card like this, which is located on the table here by the door. If you are online and would like to make a public comment, we'll ask you to use the raise your hand function at the appropriate time and we'll call on you and allow you to speak then. And that way, then you can be heard here in the council chambers. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, so we can make it through our agenda in a reasonable time. And our city clerk will keep track of that timing. We will start today, as we usually do, with the roll call.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss. Here. Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
Here.
Councilmember Hasselmeyer.
All right, we are going to start with a couple of, well, I guess we started. We're going to have a couple of proclamations here. The first is for Juneteenth, and I know I'm going to say it in the proclamation, but I'm going to invite you very specifically to our community Juneteenth celebration at Ivory Crockett Park, which will be Friday, June 20th at 6 p.m. All right. Okay, here we go. Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation went into effect, recognizing and securing in law the unalienable right of freedom of every enslaved person behind Confederate lines. And whereas over 2.5 years later, Union Army General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and read Order Number 3 on June 19, 1865, informing the enslaved residents of the state of their freedom. And whereas from that day forward, June 19th has been a day of celebration, prayer, and reflection focused on the history, hardships, and achievements of African American people throughout the United States of America, and the work of securing liberty and justice for all continues as communities across the nation confront, challenge, and seek to eradicate systemic racism. Whereas the City Council declared Juneteenth an official city holiday on July 6, 2021, and continues to educate current and future generations of the past harms, which created a series of circumstances that are both challenges and responsibilities of each generation. Now, therefore, I, Laura Arnold, Mayor of the City of Webster Groves, and the entire City Council hereby proclaim the 19th of June, 2025 as Juneteenth in the City of Webster Groves, and urge all residents to take cognizance of this occasion by learning more about its origins, reflecting on how they can promote equity, and honoring the resilience, achievements, and legacy of our African American community. And we invite all to attend the city's Juneteenth celebration at Ivory Crockett Park, Friday, June 20th at 6 p.m. All right, yeah. Our second proclamation is for Pride Month, and I am going to ask members of the You Are Loved group from Webster Groves to meet me down here, and we'll do this from the well. Council members, you're welcome to come down as well if you'd like. Or at least for the, I don't know, come on down now, later. I have to ask, how many parade awards have you all won now?
Often one.
You've won an award, and how many parades have you been in?
Been in two.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make this a quiz, but I just, yes. So, no, I know you're not, but you are becoming more and more a prominent part of our Webster Groves parade. So thank you for that.
This group for sure.
Yeah.
We went for the number of walkers you're. Well,
You guys come on over right here. You can fill in. There you go.
You're all invited to walk with us this year. Yes, yes. We had a pretty good time.
Thank you very much. As you may know, we're actually assigned to show up at another place, but thank you. All right, here's our proclamation. Whereas the city of Webster Groves values diversity, equity, and inclusion and respects and honors the dignity of every human being. And whereas the contributions of the LGBTQ plus community to the history and successes of Webster Groves are immeasurable. And whereas the month of June has been nationally recognized as LGBTQ plus Pride Month and has its origins in the Stonewall Inn uprising in New York in June 1969, Christopher Street Liberation Day, and the LGBT civil rights movement. And whereas Pride Month is a call to action for equality, liberty, and justice for all, and has become a celebration of our LGBTQ plus, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, family, and friends. Whereas the first official Pride Day parade was in 1970, and for the past 55 years, our country has endeavored to celebrate the courage, dignity, and self-worth of everyone in the LGBTQ plus community through parades and other events. Now, therefore, I, Laura Arnold, Mayor of the City Council of Webster Groves, and the entire City Council hereby proclaim the City of Webster month of June as Pride Month and June 28th as Pride Day in the City of Webster Groves, and urge our community to join in this uplifting celebration of diversity and inclusion that is national and global. Visible, there we go. We'll do that then. All right, thank you. And you're welcome to stay. All right, we're going to proceed to the public hearing, and I will open the public hearing for the proposed city budget for fiscal year 2026. And we will have, I believe, a brief presentation then from our Director of Finance, Gregory Donovan. We're keeping you very busy tonight, sir.
I am pleased to do it, Madam Mayor. And I promise it will be brief. Yep. Okay. Madam Mayor, members of the council, tonight we have our public hearing for the budget, and I'm just going to do a brief overview of where we are, the overall budget outlook, and just a few other points of information, all of which you have heard before and have been contained in presentations over the last 4 meetings. So currently, just in updates, as of today, this is The all funds budget for fiscal year 2025, 96% of our budgeted revenue for all funds has been received. Remember that a huge portion of that is the Prop W funds. 93% at this point in fiscal year 24, and we've incurred 75% of our anticipated expenses in all funds versus 76% as of last year. However, as it pertains to the general fund, we received 86% of our revenue compared to last year where we had 93% of our revenue in at this same point in time. Expenses at 79% versus last year at 84%. So as has been our trend, we're continuing to have that gap between revenues and expenses, which leads to the anticipated surplus that I believe will occur this year. So we started the 2025 and the proposed budget and then later amended, as you can see there, and we budgeted for a deficit of 404,000. I anticipate that we will be at about $850,000 surplus. So I mentioned in the work session that can change. One, some of the expenses that I've estimated, whether maybe contingency or different things, that it would not be prudent for me to say, oh yeah, we're going to spend less than that. Those may come in under budget, and also revenues. And I will know more in the next week or so on sales taxes. And for May and April, just as a reminder, the state collected sales taxes come in a month behind. I shouldn't say they're late, they're a month behind. And the sales taxes that come in from the county are 2 months behind. So we won't have final revenue numbers until August 10th in terms of revenues for the city for this current fiscal year. However, I anticipate us, when all said and done, having around an $850,000, $900,000 surplus. The proposed budget, as has been discussed in our community and in our recent council meetings, of $23.3 million in revenue with $24.5 million in expenses, leaving a almost $1.2 million deficit. And I feel that it's important as we prepare as we're leading into this public hearing to again reiterate a couple of points. First of all, a budget is a plan. It is not a guarantee of anything that will happen on either side of the ledger. I think that's an important thing to remember. It's also a snapshot in time. It's a snapshot of July 1st through June 30th. So just as the one that we're finishing up is a snapshot of July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. The income and expenses, as I said, ours are pretty steady in Webster Groves, which is great. It makes planning easy and rather straightforward. However, they can change, they can fluctuate. I did propose a more conservative budget on the revenue side. So I did not increase our sales taxes by our historic growth rate of 3%. I increased them depending on which sales tax it was, between 0.5% and 1%. So, and some of them flat because of the trends of this current year and the uncertainties going forward, because we just don't know what is going to happen with the overall economy. If we were doing financial planning, you were sitting in front of your financial planner, he would or she would show you a Monte Carlo scenario, which would give you 50 different probabilities, right? It could show you that we're going to make a fortune, or that, well, this is the absolute worst case scenario. So I feel that while on the conservative side, that my data is sound and that my estimates are sound for next year, I will happily be wrong on the revenue side. Trust me. So just want to address that out for the residents. I know that there's been a lot of conversation, and want to be sure that we have, keeping those points in mind, as well as several of the other points that we've discussed, or answering the question of how can we go from a surplus of $850,000 to a deficit of 1.1 million. There are so many factors that go into that. In the budget are contingency plans. I will give you one example. We budget a significant amount of money. It's, compared to the overall budget, not huge, but we commit a significant amount of money for people who decide to retire from the city of Webster Groves, and we have to pay out their vacation and sick pay. Now, we don't know. They don't tell us ahead of time necessarily that they're going to retire. Sometimes we know ahead of time. We have no way of predicting that. We may not spend it all. Unless something, again, people haven't told us that they're retiring between now and June 30th, we're going to come out ahead in that account line. So even though from what we budget for contingencies, and there are plenty of other contingencies in the plan. Doesn't add up to 1.1 million or 1.2 million, but they are there. So some of the alarm bells that people have been ringing, as I've said many times, I do not believe they need to be rung at this time or with this budget. Now, as we go forward, it is my responsibility to keep, as according to our city charter, to report to Dr. Peoples and to all of you if we are going to be running aground as you were. And I do not anticipate that we are. So I'm confident in what we have. And again, sales taxes may go even higher. People may continue to spend their money. People in the city of Webster Groves may absorb increased costs with their spending, and they may not stop their spending habits. I don't know. I read the papers as much as you do, read what I can. Consumer sentiment is down. So I would expect sales taxes to not increase as much. So, and really wasn't on my agenda of topics to talk about, but I wanted to bring it up just so that we're trying to level set with everyone. Again, fund balance, we've talked about this. I have circled here. This is the audited statement straight from our audit, going back the last 10 fiscal years, and that we've continued to have a healthy fund balance, which is our reserve, and the cushion, the financial cushion for the city of Webster Groves. I've circled the top 3 in the last 10 years, 2 of which are both in 2023 and 2024, which it increased significantly last year. So we're in a good position. And I also bring up that our current fund balance policy has a 50% target. And I know that it's under consideration this evening for possible change. This was revised in 2019, but here's the purpose. It's stated directly in our current policy to protect against reducing service levels, raising taxes and fees due to temporary revenue shortfalls. I would consider the current situation to be a temporary one as I assembled the budget. So I believe that we are well within our current policy. Again, this is what the fund balance is for. So even if we're 100% fully staffed, and even if we spend every single penny asked for in the expenditure line of this budget and the revenues come in as expected, or a little bit lower or a little bit higher, we are doing this, dipping a little bit into the reserves in order that we do not have to reduce services or change anything that is expected of us from the city of Webster, from the residents of the city of Webster Groves. Our 10-year fund balance 10-year history. We talked a little bit about this in the work session, just pointing out that at the moment, based on our current policy, we have $8 million cushion between our current fund balance and our policy of maintaining a 50% of our anticipated expenditures. And that's it. That's all I have. I told you it would be brief. So I wanted to address those things with respect to the community as we get ready to go. And so are there any questions from all of you before we go to the next step?
I have one.
Sure.
Now, you did a projection of our revenue as being flat.
more or less, with respect to the sales taxes.
Right.
Yes.
So the expense on the expense side, I have every expenses in the previous years that we're going to have this budget period. I know for a fact that this is the first time that we've had a full police force, full firefighters. So how would that impact our budget?
That is a great question. So having fully staffed public services, which is the public safety, I should say, which comprises supporting public safety departments is over 50% of our general fund budget. So having the police department being fully staffed, continuing to provide the services that we do and support for the fire department. For instance, their CBA supporting their agreement with the city for their wages and things like that. That will continue to increase the required expenditures for the city. And that is having a direct impact on what we're looking at here. So there are those things that in the past, we may have been able to maybe hold back on the budget, lower it a bit, because we weren't anticipating being, particularly in the police department. The previous chief commented many times that we had never been fully staffed for the number of police officers that are authorized by the city. So some of that stuff, may in the past, we might have looked at that and said, okay, we're going to be okay. So in terms of that, we are fully staffed now. We are budgeting to be fully staffed, and we are expecting that to continue on.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Right. Are there other questions? All right. Thank you very much. And I will just say for the record, if anyone is tuning in today for the first time to our budget proceedings, please note that this is actually the fourth city council meeting in which we've talked about the budget, including a series of budget amendments. So I'd encourage you, if you really want to dig in, to go back to our April 15th meeting where departments made presentations. And we've had 2 subsequent meetings where we've spent at least 6 hours, 7 hours on budget related matters. All right, we are now to the point where we have public comments. Again, if you'd like to make a public comment, I'd ask you to fill out the card here. They're located on the table over there. And for our first public comment, and actually the only card I have right here, we'd like to welcome back Mr. Dave Buck.
Well, I am a bit of not coming in. This is beyond my pay grade. I trust Greg, and I just think.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dave. All right. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public comment during the public hearing for the budget? And if so, I'd ask you to use the raise your hand function, please. All right. I don't see any hands raised on Zoom. Let's see. Do you enter the budget, Mr. City Attorney?
We would, the PowerPoint presentation was presented this evening by Mr. John.
All right, and that closes the public hearing, and we don't need a first and second reading. We will consider and vote on the bill, on the budget itself at our next meeting. All right. So that moves us to the more general time for remarks from the community and from visitors. And so I do not have any cards. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a more general comment to the council and to the community? I don't see any hands raised there at this time. So we are at new business today. We do have a bit of new business. I'm going to ask Director of Parks and Recreation, James Boyd, and our Assistant Police Chief, Eric Weimer, to come out and talk a little bit about this week's Aquatic Center opening. We just want to report. No, that's okay.
All right.
First of all, I do want to take this moment to, and I know the rest of council feels this way, to say thank you. I know how hard you all worked to get the pool open and running by Memorial Day. And the weather didn't cooperate, but boy, things have picked up
Yeah.
since then.
We got through it, and it's a big, I wanted to start out by thanking all of you all coming out to the ribbon cutting. We had a great time. The weather on Memorial Day, I think the high was like 71 or 72. It started misting towards the end of it. But the cool thing that got like over 300 likes on Facebook, there was like 3 or 4 boys that didn't camp out, but they were there at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and they left at 6 p.m. that night. I was standing there, I'm like, you guys are just now leaving? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, their lips were blue, they're eating ice cream, but they had the time of their life. So I told staff, I'm like, that's why we do what we do. Like, it was just so cool, and like gives me goosebumps talking about it. So I'm gonna go through some numbers comparison from the first 10 days we were open in 2024 versus to this first 10 days in 2025. And I'd like you to keep in mind, during the first 10 days of this year, we were closed this past Tuesday and Thursday due to inclement weather. So, and our numbers are still, will speak for themselves. And before I get into the numbers, I've told a lot of people this is an awesome facility. We're so proud of it. Staff has done tremendous work. It's been a team effort, 110%. And I like to use the analogy of like moving into a new home. You think you have everything organized the way you want, but until you live in it, you're going to have to rearrange some things. You're like, man, this doesn't work here. We need to rearrange. So that's what we've been doing for the first 10 days. We've had to move some stuff around and just kind of see how it operates with 1,000 people in there. So that's kind of what we're doing, and gathering input from the public and staff members and just kind of adjusting as we go, but things have been going extremely well. So I'll start off with membership scans. So this is an individual or a family who purchases a membership. In 2024, the first 10 days of operation, we had 2,213 check-ins with membership scans. This year, 2025, we have had 3,677. It's a 66% increase with a little over 1,400 additional scans just for memberships. Resident ID scans, and this is for residents who purchase a Webster Groves resident ID card. In 2024, we had 1,962, which brought in $16,006. In 2025, we've had 2,321, which has brought in $25,684.99. It's a 60% increase. Our concession stand, we have totally revamped our concession stand, have state-of-the-art equipment in there. I'm hoping all of you tried out one of our famous ice cream cones, which we're very excited about. Our concession stand in 2024, we sold 4,474 items in the first 10 days of operations, which brought in $12,233.75. In 2025, this year, the first day, and we were closed again for 2 days due to inclement weather, we sold a little over 6,000 items, which brought in $18,616.75. It's a 52% increase. So we're very proud of that. At total dollar amounts in 2024 for the first 10 days of operation, we brought in $29,679.75. 2025, we have brought in $49,946.74. It's a 68% increase just in the 10 days. So very excited about those numbers. Total numbers of check-ins last year was 4,175. This year it's 5,998. It's 44% increase. Last thing, number-wise, some fun facts. Two fun facts. We have sold 13,540 ounces of fountain drinks and 8 days of operations. We were closed for 2. That's 677 of the ball aluminum cups that we are recycling. So to go into our sustainability efforts, I don't know if everybody saw, we have a pour away with instructions on, you get done with your drink, you pour the waste into this pour away container that has a soap in there, it kind of dissolves from the odor, and then they stack their lids and cups separate, and then we are recycling those. So that's 677 cups. Another sustainable thing that we're doing this year is our souvenir cups, which we sold out of, and so we're getting more in. They've been delayed for weeks, unfortunately, but we have a long list of people to call once they come in. We've done 138 refills of those, so we're reusing things. So I'm very excited about that. Last little fun fact, we have sold 4,828 ounces of ice cream. So everybody's loving those. And I wanted to end on with, I'll hand it over to the Assistant Chief. With the increase of numbers already, we've I've met with the chief of police and assistant chief to go over kind of being proactive and working with them. Monday through Friday, they're going to come through at the top of every hour, do a walkthrough, engage with the public, do some paperwork in front of the water park just to be seen. On the weekends. They'll have a regular schedule for coming in too. So I greatly appreciate that. And all the other departments. Everybody jumped in and helped with everything. So it was really cool being the new director, seeing that city staff just working together. It's been awesome. And we're excited to be open. So that's all I have.
I would just like to say, I think James is doing a great job. And as you said, we've met a couple times now to talk about various different things, whether that be to collaborate on training for staff on how to deal with conflict at the front desk, or whether that's safety concerns, walkthroughs, and those sort of things. And we're off to a really good start. We've got a pool plan in place. So we will have officers frequently coming through and having a presence at the pool. By and large, things have been off to a positive start. There was some issues this weekend with parking. There's a combination of factors for that, as you can imagine, that being the new pool, the good weather, and a track event that was scheduled at the high school, and the small streets surrounding the area and the parking issues because of the width of streets and things around there. So we did receive some complaints. Perhaps the number of attendants for the track meet was a little bit the estimate was a little off, but all that created some parking issues down at the rec center. But by and large, it's been a pretty decent start, in my opinion, on how things are going down there. And we'll continue to work with James. And like I said, he's doing a great job. I don't have all the data and numbers. We had a couple calls and concerns about fire trucks and things getting through. We did have 4 officers working that track event that were issuing parking tickets short of towing cars, which we didn't get to that level. We were able to get the fire services to the calls to the track, which one was a seizure and one was a heat related incident. So those were kind of the things that you might have heard on social media regarding last weekend.
All right, thank you. Anybody have questions for either? No? All right, thank you. And I would, go ahead.
I do want to echo Mayor, what's your last name? Arnold. Very a lot of comments. I think everything went well that first day. I can't say how pleased I was to see the new aquatic center. It was excellent. I mean, really beautiful. I don't see what some people have to complain about, but there was some complaints. But you guys did a great job, and with aquatic center and the rec center, Scott, and even Dr. Peoples, all that comes from leadership. And
Thank you.
that, all that needs to be, accounted for. So everything was really great. Thank you.
I would just like to say one thing. Katie Kirby, I think, is another person that deserves a lot of credit in this opening. She is a rock star. Her and James have been killing it down there. So just want to give them some credit and recognition for that as well.
Nice,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good.
Nice.
And James, I appreciate you giving the analogy of moving into your house and trying to figure out how it works, because I know you all are working on some things like concession speed and things like that. And I will just ask our residents to be patient and to give you some time with your whole flock of teenagers to get that figured out.
Yep. Thank you very
Thank
much. Appreciate it.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Davis reminded me it's a great time to remind the public that not only was this on time, but it was under budget. And that's really good news because we'll be able to invest, yes. Considering the weather, it's amazing that happened, but we'll be able to invest those dollars in our other Prop W projects. And so it's not just money saved, it's money going back into the community. So it really is a big deal. And thank you to Chief Weimer. Really appreciate the police presence this past weekend. We did receive quite a few complaints about parking and giving tickets. I really appreciated that he noted fire services have to get through. There were emergency events. And so we're not just giving tickets to give tickets. It is about safety for residents. So if people, the water park is going to be busy this summer, no doubt. But if people please be conscientious about that and walk when they can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alternate transportation.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to new business here, and for the hopefully last time, although I guess technically we could have budget amendment next time, I'm gonna ask if there are any budget amendments.
No more than the budget amendment we went through last meeting, based on our conversation with the fund balance and reserve. I'd like to still let that stay withdrawn and be heavily considered when we start looking at the uses for the reserve. I do agree that Dr. Peoples and Greg, they need a break, but I think they're going to come up with a comprehensive plan for us to use those funds. So just keep that Fire Station 1 in mind.
Thank you very much. All right, then I'm going to ask Councilmember Hassemeyer, we'll move on and ask for you to have the first and second reading of Bill number 9282, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9282.
Second.
Bill 9282, first reading. An ordinance defining the pay grades of the classified and unclassified service of the city of Webster Groves, fixing the compensation for employees in said classifications, and repealing ordinance 9254.
All right, is there any discussion? This is, I think everyone knows, just the standard operational ordinance for salaries within the budget. Okay. All right, then I guess we'll have that second one, please.
Bill 9282, second reading. An ordinance defining the pay grade of the classified and unclassified service of the city of Webster Groves, fixing the compensation for employees in said classifications, and repealing ordinance 9254.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda? No? Okay, I do. No one else is going to do it. Just because I think it's important that we vote on the new fund balance policy, I'm going to ask that we remove resolution 2025-26 from the consent agenda.
Second.
All right.
So do we need to vote?
So I'll just say, anyone who is interested in the discussion should watch our work session. We had a pretty vibrant discussion there. This is just a matter of getting us on the record. So unless there's any additional discussion, we can have that vote on on resolution 2025-26.
Sure. Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin, Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander, Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hassemeyer.
Yes.
Mayor Arnold.
Yes. All right. Councilmember Alexander, could you call for the approval of the consent agenda, please?
Second.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander, Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Hassemeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
All right, we've made 2 appointments to boards and commissions this evening. Jennifer Gates has been appointed to the Board of Adjustment, and Andrew Moses has been appointed to the Plan Commission. And I believe that concludes our business for this evening.
No.
Do we have anything?
No closed meeting?
Excuse me?
Are we gonna have the close that we didn't have in between? I know, I'm trying to keep you guys. We can't leave this early. It seems wrong.
I'm gonna say no.
You guys are missing out on a good time, but okay.
Do we have
Now
a
we're gonna
closed
be-
meeting?
No, we do not.
Oh.
I'm gonna just say it. We do not. All right, this meeting is adjourned.